You might have missed this, ladies and gentlemen. In Detroit, Michigan, they had the People's Conference for Palestine 2025. Were you invited? I wasn't invited. I don't think I'd escaped there with my life, quite frankly. Rashida Tlaib, as you know, was one of the leading speakers there, and is also one of the leading Jew-hater, anti-Semites, and terror-associated, in my view, individuals in the United States Congress. How she remains there, I'll never know, but there she is. And she proved herself to be everything I just said, yet again. And I want to play a few minutes because I want to talk about this. Here she is, Rashida Tlaib, at this People's Conference for Palestine 2025. Go.
They thought they could kill us, rape us, imprison us, violently uproot us from our olive tree farms, starve our children to death, and we would disappear. Well, guess what? Now we're in Congress, and we're every corner of the United States. Y'all, they just don't get it. They just don't get it. They will never truly comprehend, Jama'ah, even after 7 decades, that we aren't going anywhere. We are just getting started. I want to say to all of them, every genocide enabler, look at this room's. We ain't going anywhere.
You know what, ladies and gentlemen? She is a vile cancer on the body politic. She talks about 70 years ago. It's close to 80 years ago, the founding of the State of Israel. But that's the indigenous lands of the Jewish people. People may not understand there's a place called Shiloh in Judea and Samaria, which in 1948 they started calling the West Bank, because when the Jews were attacked, Jordan grabbed Judea and Samaria and claimed it for itself as its West Bank. It's more accurately called Israel's East Bank. These are indigenous peoples who've been there over 4,000 years. The birth of Judaism, the coming together of the tribes of Israel, occurred in Shiloh, in Judea and Samaria. Now, I encourage you to open your Bibles. You can look at the Old Testament, the New Testament. Do you find the Palestinians in Judea and Samaria? Do you? You're not going to find them. I already looked. Don't worry. So when she talks about, we've told them for 70, 80 years, and so forth and so on, she's told who 70 and 80 years? The fact of the matter is the main founder of the modern-day Palestinian movement was Yasser Arafat. He was an Egyptian. He was born in Egypt. The fact of the matter is the vast majority of Palestinians today live in a country called Jordan, which is 70% Palestinian. The king there, whose father was put on the throne, it's what I call a pretend monarchy. The king there, he's not Palestinian, but his wife is. But the king's father, the king before him who handed him the country, he was beset by Arafat and the Palestinians. They tried to overthrow him. There was a civil war. So he killed them and he imprisoned them. That's what he did. But it's still 70% Palestinian. This is why he will not accept any more Palestinians. This is why the Egyptians won't accept Palestinians. This is why not a single Arab country with the massive land that they have, Saudi Arabia, any of the rest of them, will accept Palestinians. The fact that Gaza is viewed as Palestinian, Gaza was part of the original Holy Land where the Jews lived. They were given Gaza, I think it was 2005, give or take, which is right on the Mediterranean Sea. People talk about how hard it is. It wasn't hard, as a matter of fact. It was a beautiful piece of land. And they removed the 8,500 or so Jewish families there, removed them forcibly, and gave the land to the Palestinians. And what did they do? They built over 400 miles of underground tunnels aimed at creating a terror state to destroy the people who live in Israel. And I might add, the people in Gaza elected Hamas. That was the first and last election they had. Hamas brutalizes the people. Hamas, even now, is torturing and killing people who are trying to get food because they won't take it from Hamas, which has been stealing food and taxing food. All that said, how do you build over 400, almost 500 miles of tunnels without the people in the territory knowing about it? It's 24 square miles. There's 2.5 million people. Where do you put all that sand and dirt? What about the noise? Now, they used mostly human power as opposed to machine power to try and avoid notice by the Israelis and all other satellite systems. So how do you do that without the support of the people? There's so many things here that have never been discussed and exposed. It's very frustrating to somebody like me when you have a demagogue like this woman saying the things that she says. And by the way, it's not just about Israel and Jews. She hates the United States of America. She hates Americans. You're about to hear. Go.
We are just growing and growing and growing. We are bringing siblings from other movements with us. Every corner of the city that raised me has shown me how to fight for civil rights and justice and against oppression. It'll show you, because I want you to be truly present in this city that gave me strength. It's not just Demi Palestiniya, it's that as an American, this city taught me that the political structures that I have to work in, that we all are surrounded by, was built on slavery and genocide and rape and oppression.
All right, that's enough. She goes on and on and on. And the fact is, you see, she's attacking the United States of America. Did you know we were built on racism and oppression and genocide and all the rest? This is the fusion of Marxism and Islamism. There's exhibit number 1. There's thousands, tens of thousands now. You've seen them in the streets. You've seen them at colleges and universities. Mandami is another example. This fusion of Marxism and Islamism. They want to overthrow the West. I explain it in my new book at some length, On Power. And this is it. This is who they are. And it is a growing movement. Open borders has resulted in the importation of people from the Middle East who have no intention of assimilating into our society. Not all, of course, but too many. And their intention, once they go through our schooling system, and especially colleges and universities, becomes a revolution. And all during this event, they talk about revolution. They talk about all the struggling groups that need to come together under one tent, one umbrella, and join forces together. You can see a lot of young people are brainwashed by this because there's no pushback anymore. There's no pushback. You know, people would come into this country, they're assimilated into our culture, they're assimilated into our belief system. They don't come here for the purpose of using our liberty and our free speech to destroy our liberty and free speech and to overthrow the country. And yet this is the movement. They seek to overthrow the West. They pretty much have done much of Europe, France, Britain, and so many of the other countries, and they seek to overthrow our country too. And they're very well funded by, you know, dark money from multi-billionaires who are on the Marxist side, the leftist side, money from the Soros foundations, and money from enemy states. Money from Hamas, money from Qatar, money from Iran, money from communist China. It's all flowing into our country. And then the whole educational system is set up to give faculty the ability to hire faculty and give them tenure. And then they run around talking about free speech. And of course, they have their radical left-wing judges that help them, making it so difficult for the president to deal with these universities, to deport people who are really the enemy within. But I wanted to talk about this issue of genocide. This is a report that was put out on Wednesday, this past week, debunking the genocide allegations, a re-examination of the Israel-Hamas war from October 7, 2023 to June 1, 2025. Mideast Security and Policy Studies. Not one major news platform in America read this. Not one host or reporter but me, and I'm a host, not a reporter, read this. Why is that? Why is that? Why didn't they read this? Is it too hard, too complicated? The analysis in here is overwhelming. It's done by a number of professors who decided to look at all available data, determine where it's all coming from, to make a report, a definitive report about famine, about genocide, about casualties in Gaza. You would think they'd be interested, but they have no interest whatsoever. Not at the BBC, no. Not at the New York Times, Not at the Washington Post, NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, even conservative media. Not one. Now, if we're going to support the destruction of the state of Israel, if we're going to support the spreading of anti-Semitism, if we're going to support the empowering of Marxists and Islamists, which is what's happening, don't you think at a minimum we ought to take a look at the facts? Now, I've come to you with other reports before, but these people aren't just about overthrowing Israel and destroying the Jewish people. They're about destroying the United States of America and Americanism. This study debunks the Gaza genocide claims, as reported by the Jerusalem Post. There, they read it. And they finds flaws in the UN international reporting on the war. Let me just give you a taste. Because if I don't do it, nobody else is going to do it. Narratives about Israel committing genocide, war crimes, and a deliberate mass starvation in the ongoing war in Gaza have been challenged, and in some cases debunked, in a comprehensive study published Wednesday, this past week, titled Debunking the Genocide Allegations, a Re-Examination of the Israel-Hamas War 2023 to 2025. I know this doesn't have anything to do with Kelsey or Taylor Swift. I'm sorry. Somebody else can do that. This is where we are tonight. This is deadly serious to us, we, the American people. The study published by the Begin Sadat Center for Strategic Studies in the Hebrew University of Jerusalem engaged in a critical analysis to challenge the narrative of Israeli genocide during the conflict by analyzing humanitarian reporting and casualty data. Do you know the UN changed the definition of famine in order to attack the state of Israel? Do you know that? This is a 311-page report. The study also uses quantitative analysis and forensic documentation to examine and contest widely reported claims from international organizations and courts. Shouldn't corporate media say, we need to make sure we're reporting the right information, the accurate information? Somebody review this report in our corporation and make sure we're doing the right thing? They don't. Led by Professor Danny Orbach, the authors said that their objective was to provide a factual analysis rather than a legal or moral exoneration. It's divided into 8 chapters. Each section of the study addresses specific allegations and themes related to this conflict and its reporting. The researchers said that more food entered Gaza during the war than before the war, than before October 7, 2023, a claim that starkly contradicts widespread reports of imminent famine and the deliberate starvation of the Gazan population on Israel's part. Shouldn't that be a headline report on NBC and ABC and all the rest of them? Wait a minute. More food went into Gaza since October 7th than before October 7th. According to the study, the frequently cited requirement of 500 aid trucks entering Gaza daily stems from what the authors called a misrepresentation by UN bodies. They point to pre-war UN records showing, on average, only 73 food trucks per day in 2022. The 500 figure has been regularly cited throughout the war by the UN, saying you got to get 500 trucks in there or people are going to starve. They're pointing out, wait a minute, that's never been the case. Never. And yet this was reported, this international allegation by CNN, The Guardian, The Washington Post, among others. In a similar vein, the study said that food that entered Gaza during the ceasefire should have sufficed, I'm quoting, until July 2025, according to the UN World Food Program projections, their own projections at the UN. The researchers attributed the gap between projected sufficiency and reported shortages to, quote, extensive looting by Hamas. I've told you this over and over. The media know it, but they don't give a damn. Further, the study took direct aim at casualty figures reported by the Hamas-run Gaza Health Ministry, GMOH, alleging systematic data manipulation. According to the researchers, the health ministry, quote, per Hamas's directives, categorizes all deaths as civilian ones, all of them. That, the analysts found, quote, significantly skewed the international reporting, for there are indication that the ministry's lists included age-related natural deaths, particularly of women, while failing to indicate combat-aged men. The selective reporting, they argued, artificially inflates civilian casualty figures and obscures the actual combat-to-civilian death ratio. Case in point, The study's analysis of the Hamas reports revealed a fluctuating and often implausible distribution of the number of casualties. There have been like 5 reports on this that the media just ignores. Moreover, the authors presented data suggesting that evacuation zones that the IDF sets up significantly were safer than other areas. According to their partial data analysis, less than 4% of deaths occurred in the humanitarian section of al-Mawasi and the other central camps set up by the Israelis, areas marked as evacuation safe zones. They attributed higher casualties elsewhere to, quote, the failure of the UN to cooperate with the establishment of such zones. More, a substantial portion of the study focused on what the authors described as systematic failures in UN and NGO. These are these non-government organizations that are paid a fortune. On their reporting, they identified patterns of circular citation, opaque assessments, unannounced retroactive corrections that researchers said have distorted the international understanding of the conflict and these casualties. One example they highlighted involves UNRWA's, the UN's, truck count discrepancies. While UNRWA initially reported a 70% drop in aid after May 2024, the Rafah operation, the agency, quote, later retroactively corrected these reports. Crucially, the authors noted, this correction was effectively unannounced, and hence the supposed aid drop continues to be broadly cited by the media today. The study extended its analysis beyond Gaza as well, examining similar patterns in the Iraq war, our war with Iraq, during the UN Security Council's 1990s sanctions regime. Per the authors, claims of hundreds of thousands of child deaths due to sanctions based on Iraqi government data were later revealed to be fabricated by the Iraqi authorities. Introducing a new theoretical concept called humanitarian bias, the report used this term to characterize what the authors perceived as systematic errors in conflict reporting. They define this as a tendency among aid organizations to accept alarming claims from stakeholders in order to mobilize urgent action. Commensurate with the researchers, this is a bias that creates a feedback loop where factual corrections are often met with hostility or ignored altogether, undermining accuracy in humanitarian reporting. Factual corrections. Over 300 pages with citations everywhere. Ignored by the media in the West, in the United States, ignored. They added that even when myths are definitively disproven, corrections are rarely incorporated into public or academic understandings. The study also mentioned that humanitarian bias can be particularly damaging when it prevents a realistic assessment of root causes of conflict and humanitarian crises, such as the actions of the non-state actors, Hamas. The academics credited the IDF with implementing what they called unprecedented steps, such as early warnings, precision targeting, and mission aborts to avoid civilian harm, actions they noted were costly to the IDF, killed their soldiers in many respects, but reduced non-combatant casualties. A comparison of the IDF's non-combatant to combatant casual ratio to those of other Western armies fighting urban insurgencies was also provided in the study, and based on this, it was determined that the IDF's ratio was relatively low. I dare every media corporation and organization in America to go through this and report what it says. I dare you.
Want even more Fox News on YouTube? Become a Fox News Patriot today. Click join to find out how.